we had a big event over at Common Ground on Newport, and I was in the sanctuary. There's lots of people buzzing around, and I was in conversations with a woman, and I kind of didn't know her, you know, too well, but we had met, and there were people buzzing all around the place, and she looked at me and goes, "See that woman over there? See that? Man, that woman's got it together. I've seen her at several events. You know, I've seen her, and it's like, man, she's always just looks top notch, you know, she just, her hair's always in place, she's got the perfect lipstick. It's like people come up and talk to her, she's confident, she just, you know, has it all together." And then she looked at me and she goes, "Don't you hate her?" Oh. Now, I knew what she meant, right? And that's kind of what I want to talk about, you know, what is it, you know, what is it about other, you know, other people, you know, what is it about that we're looking for, you know, that makes us feel less than when somebody else is all perfect and all together. And it's because I think that we think we're supposed to be that too. You know, that deep inside that we think that they're more lovable than we are, that we are not as good enough, that we aren't good, that we are supposed to be different than we are. And so we see somebody else that we think, now I knew the woman, and I knew that she had stuff going on too, right? She wasn't perfect. None of us are. But she had self-worth. I knew that about her too, that she was somebody who really loved herself. And it showed because she came from her heart. She loved herself so she could love other people. And she came from her heart, and she buzzed around and she talked to people, and her heart was open, and yeah, she looked like she had it all together. And we want that. All of us want that. See, and what happens is when we don't feel good enough, we are less compassionate. Not only to ourselves, but to other people. It makes us almost feel mean inside sometimes. I don't really think she meant she hated the other person. You know, that wasn't what it was about. But it sure didn't make her feel compassionate and loving towards her. Because inside, she had a feeling of unworthiness. Because that's the message, just like we saw on the video. That's the messages that we get, not always from our parents, you know, I mean, I'm kind of tired of them getting blamed for everything, but it's from the world, right? You know, it's the world gives us the message that we got to have whiter teeth, and we have to have, you know, our hair has to be perfect, and, you know, if we don't wear the right deodorant, you know, it's just like, oh boy, you know, you don't have it together. So we get all of these messages, and we take those in, and we think that we have to be different than we are. We think our life is supposed to be way perfect. And I'm sorry, there just isn't anybody I know that has the perfect life, because there is no such thing. There is no such thing as the perfect person that lives the perfect life. And that's yet what we strive for. So what happens is, if we think we're perfect, then we can love ourselves. That's what we think in our minds. You know, we can start to love ourselves. And that's not how it works. We try to become perfect. And when we can't, we just give up, and then we live in what Brene Brown calls shame. We live in shame. We give up. We think we're supposed to eat right, meditate, do yoga, right? Especially in spiritual circles. I have to laugh because, you know, if we're not too spiritual, you know, then there's something wrong with us if we haven't done everything that we're supposed to do. And the truth is, wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, and it's perfect. There isn't anybody here that isn't perfect the way that you are. You're perfectly imperfect. Let me put it that way. Now here's what I want to say about that is that at a soul level, we are perfect. There isn't anybody here that doesn't deserve to be totally loved for who you are. You are so incredibly wonderful, awesome, and perfect. But we have imperfections as human beings. We all do. That's why we're here, to move forward and learn and to grow. And so when I say embrace yourself and love yourself, I'm not talking about, you know, never trying to be better than you are, right? I didn't say that right. It's to be more skilled. To be more skilled. We're all on a journey to being more skilled, and that's important. We need to do that. But we have to embrace where we are to be there. We have to embrace where we are. Here's what Brene Brown, she has a quote that says, "How much that we know and understand ourselves is really important, but there is something that is way more important and essential to living a fulfilled life, and that's loving ourselves." Really learning to love who you are. And that takes courage. And that's what I want to focus on today. It takes so much courage to love even your imperfections, to love who you are, and to still move forward into a skilled way of being, but to love where you are on the journey. And that's what we're all called to do. That's why we're here. To learn to love who we are. Courage to be compassionate to others and to ourselves. That's what we're here. And we are here to embrace our humanity. So this main talk today is about embracing our humanity. We talk a lot about expressing the God self, but today it's about embracing that incredible human that you are. How courageous to be authentic. Wow. To be vulnerable. To be who you really are. It takes so much courage. See, when we act from our authentic self, our real authentic self, you know that is our God self. That's not our ego. When we're trying to be something other than our authentic self, that's ego. You know, if that woman I talked about at the beginning was running around with her head trying to impress people, you know, that would be her ego. But she was coming from her heart, looking and caring about other people, sharing from her heart. It wasn't running around trying to gather up friends and be a big shot. See, there's a difference between working with your head and your heart. And when we give that gift of courage, when we have the courage to be authentic and make, you know, compassion our life and make connection our life, it changes us. And it requires living from our heart space. We talk all the time about dropping from your head to your heart, and that's what this is about. When you live in your heart space, you live connected to each other. You realize that we are so connected that we are each other. But your vulnerability is on the line, and that's hard. See, when you're able to share your imperfections with other people, that's not a bad thing. You don't have to have it all together, even though we think that we do. When you can share your story of not being perfect and feel safe doing it, you change other people's life. But it's like a habit. I think Judy said it last week. We talked about courage again last week. And it's something, courage is like swimming, you know, you have to learn how to do it. You courage, it's a verb. You courage, and every time you courage a little bit more, you get a little bit more strong. I know when we started ministry, you know, I had to, oh my gosh, the courage. I had to get up here and be judged, and I was in my head, and I was vulnerable, and the more I started to do it, the more courage that I got. But I have to share something, because it's hard to let somebody see you, right? With all your flaws, with here I am, and knowing that there's people in their head that are judging and things. It's not easy, but when we can actually embrace that and get through it and not matter and stand on our own truth, we grow big time, big time. When I was reading part of Brene Brown's book, she talks about an incident that she had, and I relate it because this happened to me, and I'm going to tell you my story. But I could really relate, because when I first started giving talks, I was at Unity, and I think we got to talk every so often, right? Marge was the minister there, but every so often she'd say, okay, I don't want to do the talk, you do the talk. And we go, oh God, we got to do the talk, you know? And I wasn't really prepared, but I would try to work all week on it, and I would write it out, and I always wrote it, the whole thing out. Everything I was going to say, I'd write it all. And then I would try to memorize it in my head so that I could look up and just pretend that I could say this talk, right? That's kind of was one of my first talks that I did. Well, I had it all, and I memorized it, and I was so excited, you know, that I would be able to get up and impress everybody, right? It came from my head, right? I can do this. I'm going to be a great minister. I can, you know, read a talk really well. And as I did, oh my gosh, I pronounced this word wrong. And I'm not kidding you. I made a joke kind of about it, but I moved on, and nobody really even knew. But I felt my hands start to sweat. I felt my eyes just got really dry, everything. I can remember to this day, I was still talking. I was still reading, not talking. I was still reading, but I was devastated, you know, and I just bumbled it all, and I walked off, and I'm not sure everybody knew it. But it was so devastating for me that I didn't want to give another talk, right? You know, so when we were asking again, I'm going, Judy, could you do this one? I can't do it. You know, I don't want to do this. So it was this shame. I didn't tell anybody why, because nobody really knew that I pronounced the word wrong. Actually, they did. Somebody told me afterward that how to say it. But you know, that wasn't the big deal. It was that I kept it right inside. And this thing that you keep inside, this is my point. When you keep these things inside of you, they turn to the shame. That's what she's talking about. And so it created this whole idea of, I don't want to do a talk ever again. You know, I'll support everybody else. You know, I'll do a meditation, I'll do this, but I don't want to get up and talk and be judged and say words wrong. You know, it's like horrible. I can't do it anymore. And I kept it inside of me, never really talked about it to anybody. Well, in her book, she says that these stories, these little tiny ideas of that you think are shameful, that they fester in you and they, you know, affect your whole life. And I can remember the day when I finally let it out, that that's what had happened and how I felt and how I reacted. I told my husband, you know, and I said, and he goes, why don't you want to do the talk anymore? You know, I said, you know, I just don't, no big deal. It's just not me. You know, I didn't tell the truth. And finally, you know, he got it out of me. Look, I pronounce this word, I'm stupid. You know, I'm stupid, I'm an idiot. I know nobody pronounces words wrong, you know, and I was trying to be so smart and here. And what he said was something like, you know, you're a goofball, you know, and that's why I love you, you know, basically, is because you're not perfect, you know, in some kind of terms. And, you know, I got to thinking about that. And it was kind of the telling of the story in a safe place, right? A safe place, which he was safe for me because I knew he wouldn't try to fix it. He would just love me anyway. And that's what kind of released the idea that I can do talks. It's okay, you can do talks. And so our sharing that story, you know, that little, whatever it is, and it's so stupid, right? I mean, that is really stupid to do that. But it's okay. We all have those moments where you feel like an idiot. But the idea that you keep it buried down and you can't share it with somebody is what is harmful. You know, we need to be able to embrace ourselves enough to know we make mistakes, for God's sakes. You know? And to this day, that made me more compassionate. When we read, sometimes in these classes, you know, Women's Wisdom, we're all reading, you know, I hear people make mistakes all the time, and my empathy, I just go, oh my God, that's me, you know? they can't pronounce a word, and we all just go on. Nobody says anything, because all of us can't pronounce words all the time. But you get more compassionate. You get more compassionate when you share your pain and when you can feel it, you know, feel the connection with others. You are more empathetic. You know, courage. The courage to be who you are is so huge. To be, every one of you is so incredibly unique and special at this human level. And for you to be able to share that and to let yourself be who you are, even though you take a risk, that someone might say something like, you know, that was stupid, or that word didn't, you know, that wasn't right how you do it. It doesn't matter. We have to take the risk. We have to risk being disappointed. You know, I look at people here all the time that take these risks. They want to start a class. And how hard is that? You're going to start a class, you're going to, you know, pay for it, and then you're going to pay for a room, and then you're going to wait for people to show up, right? And how hard that is, you know, to know that you're going to offer this and nobody's going to, you know, come. And how much, you know, compassion that you have for them. Each one of us has the courage, you know, to say, I love you. Yeah, that's a hard one. And not get it back. How do you say, I forgive you? Or I made a mistake. All of that takes so much courage. And each of us have that courage within us to be able to live this authentic life. And when we do, we become compassionate beings. You know, how courageous to take the lead on the compassion games and not know how they'll turn out. You know, you don't know who's going to judge you for that. It turned out beautifully. But to step forward and to do what you do, you know, about taking a job for the first time. You know, I remember taking a volunteer job, or I applied for a volunteer job and didn't get it. Who doesn't get a volunteer job? You know, who doesn't get a volunteer job? I didn't. Okay, that was another shameful thing. You know, I'm telling you all my shame now because see, I'm, you know, but it's like, my God, you know, I was so sure. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, and I remember getting a letter back that basically you're not qualified to do this, and I went, what? For a volunteer job? My God, you know what they want. You know, that was another, at that time, I think I was a little bit more healed, you know, and I you know, came through that a little better. But it's so interesting how we do that to ourselves. But here's what the deal is that when we can be authentic and love ourselves and be self-compassionate, we change. We change. Our lives are way more clear. They're way more clear. Here's what she says about self-compassion. It's about 3 elements. It's about being kind to yourself. It's just about self-kindness. You know, don't call yourself an idiot. You know, be kind just like you would to somebody else. And then she says it's about a common humanity, knowing that we share this common humanity. That yeah, okay, I can't pronounce a word, but you know, there's a lot of people that can. It's okay, you know? It's okay that I don't get a volunteer job. You might not have got one either, or something else happened to you. We're all in this together. We all love together, we hurt together. We're different, but we're the same. That's our shared humanity. And then she says the other element is mindfulness. And that is being balanced. Not exaggerating what happened. I like that. Not exaggerating what happened or suppressing it. So if something happens in your life that you have this shame around, or this you know, anger around, whatever it is, you're not making up a big story in your head around it, right? So I'm making up a story about how people don't like me. You know, oh, you're an idiot. You shouldn't do this, and all this big story. Or you're suppressing it and pretending it didn't happen. She said there's a balance, and that balance is mindfulness. When we are mindful, we are courageous. So it's self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness is all about being kind to ourselves, about being compassionate with ourselves. And if we're to do that, we just gotta, you guys, get out of our little safe cocoon. That's the hardest thing to do in the whole world, is to not try to stay safe, to be able to get out of your comfort zone, to do what you want to do with your life. You know, to be who you want to be. If you want friends, you got to get out there. And I honor you, Paul. I think, you know, you just came and all of a sudden everybody loves you. And it's like, it's so hard to come to a community. You know, if you're here for the first time, it's tough, I think, because I've been there where everybody has their groups and here you are. You know, where do I go? What do I do? You got to have the courage to reach out. Sign up, go to a book study. Go reach out to somebody else. Connect if you want. You've got to grow that way. You've got to take the courage to step out into your comfort zone. And when you do, it's amazing what'll happen. It's amazing. You've got to embrace yourself. You've got to embrace yourself so that others will embrace you too. You know, what I know is that we are all so connected. We're so connected. When I hear your stories, I'm going, that's my story. And in some way, my story about the word is your story in some way. You know, maybe it's not the word, but it's something like that. We're so connected that we have the same feelings. And what I know is that all of us are here just to get some joy out of life, to experience, you know, love and joy and peace. That's why we're here. Those are your words, Bob. Love, joy, and peace. And that's why we come to this planet, is to learn it and to be able to accept and to realize the wholeness that we are. That's why we're here. You're already whole and perfect and complete. It's just you don't know it yet. You know, you don't know it. And we're here to let it be revealed by letting go of all of the stuff that we have put on, that the world has put on us. And that joy will be revealed as we start to let go. That's that whole month of October. We're talking about letting go of this, letting go of that. You know, and that's the idea, is we let go of all the attachments of the stuff that we have. And when we start to cultivate that garden inside, wow, that's when the joy starts to bubble up. And how do we know, you know, that we're doing okay? It's when our life starts to get better. You know, when we can handle our situation a little bit better than we could have before. When the time it takes to get to peace is a little bit shorter. Because it's a journey. It's a step by step by step journey. And it's an inside deal. It's an inside deal. You know, you're not going to find it out there. You're not going to find your joy by running here, by running there. Your joy is right here all the time. You'll never be more joyful anywhere else if you're not joyful now. So that's this call, is to find it. Is you're not going to search any longer. You're going to know that that peace and that joy is within each and every one of us. And we find that as we start to expand our heart space. We find out that joy is who we really are. And that, you know, in every cell in our body, I say it in the prayer sometime, is filled. It actually is filled with the power and the energy of joy, of love, if we can let go of everything else and love ourselves. And so that's my prayer for each of us today, is that we can just find this incredible peace within each and every one of us, the joy, by letting go of everything else, by loving each other, and more important than anything else is loving who we are. Thank you.